In this video, we're going to go over the different ways you can solve a quadratic. So make sure you start by going over this warm-up. The first way we can solve a quadratic is by factoring. So what you want to do is set equal to 0. Then we're going to try to factor. So what multiplies to 4 and adds to 5? 4 and 1. So x plus 4 times x plus 1 equals 0. Now, I can either say this is equal to 0 or this is equal to 0. So x plus 4 equals 0 or x plus 1 equals 0, and then I'll solve for x. Well, x equals negative 4 or x equals negative 1, and those are my two solutions. Same with this second problem. What multiplies to 15 and adds to 8? 5 and 3 would work. And it's set equal to 0. So now I can set both of them equal to 0. Just pretend that was a v. So v is equal to negative 5 or v is equal to negative 3. Now this next one looks a little different because it's not set equal to 0. So whenever we're solving, we want to make sure that it's set equal to 0. So what I'm going to do is subtract 4 from both sides and say b squared plus 5b minus 6 equals 0. Then I'm going to factor. And now it's just like it was before, where I can say b minus 1 equals 0 or b plus 6 equals 0. So b equals 1 or b equals negative 6. So the rest of these problems are just like that. Our goal is just to get them equal to 0. So let's try number 5. I'm going to move everything over to the left so that it's easier for me to deal with. So I'm going to add 6m to both sides and subtract 16 from both sides so that my right side is now 0. Then I can factor. And now I can set each factor equal to 0. So m is equal to negative 8 or m is equal to 2. So make sure you try the rest of these problems on your own. Your goal is always first to set equal to 0, and then you're just going to factor and solve. The next type of way that we can solve is by using our graphing calculator. So the way we're going to use our graphing calculator is you're going to plug in for y1 and graph, and then you're going to find the x-intercepts. So anytime we have a graph and it might go through once or twice or no times at all, these two x-intercepts are going to be our solutions. So if you plug in m squared minus 8m equals 0 into your calculator, you're going to have to use x squared instead and hit graph. Remember, if your calculator looks a little funky, you can always hit zoom 6, which is zoom standard. Then you're going to go second, calculate, and 0. You're going to do this once for each term. So you're going to go to the left of your first term, so maybe somewhere over here. For your left bound, hit enter, then hit your right bound and hit enter, and then guess. Same for here. Here's your left bound, and here's your right bound, and hit enter. When you do this, you should get m equals 0, m equals 8. The same thing goes for the rest of these. So this one you should get a equals negative 1, a equals negative 2. So make sure you know how to do this on your calculator because it works very well and it's a really easy way to find your answer. So I would go through and check these. On these next problems, notice it's not set equal to 0. So we can make it set equal to 0, just like we did for factoring, by adding 3x squared to both sides and adding 8 to both sides. So we get x squared plus x equals 0. And then you're going to graph it. And you'll get x equals -1 and x equals 0. So your goal again is to set equal to 0. And I'll probably post another video with a little calculator tutorial just to make sure that you've got how to do those. The last way that we can solve quadratics, for now until tomorrow, is the quadratic formula. So our quadratic formula says x is equal to -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So this is something that you're going to want to memorize. So for each equation, remember if we have y equals ax squared plus bx plus c, we can identify what a, b, and c are. So in this first equation, a is 1, right, because there's a 1 here. B is -3, and c is -88. Now let's try to plug in. So x is equal to -b, which is +3, plus or minus the square root of -3 squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a, and 2 times 1. Now what I like to do is plug in whatever underneath the radical right into my calculator so that I don't mess it up. So I'm going to write this as 3 plus or minus the square root. Plug it straight into your calculator, parentheses and all. You get 361 all over 2. Now square root of 361, try it in your calculator. See if you can actually take a square root, and you can. So it's actually 3 plus or minus 19 over 2. At this point, I can say, well, 3 plus 19 is 22, divided by 2 is 11, so x equals 11. Or 3 minus 19 divided by 2 is a -8. Let's try it again for number 18. Again, a is 1, b is 4, c is -45. X is equal to -b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. Plug in that thing underneath the radical into your calculator, parentheses and all, and you'll get square root of 196 over 2, which is square root of 196 is a nice perfect square root, so it actually simplifies to 14. So now our answers are -4 plus 14 over 2, or -4 minus 14 over 2, which is 5 or -9. The same thing applies as the last two other ways of solving. If it's not set equal to 0, we first, what do you think I'm going to say? We first have to set equal to 0. So I can't know what a, b, and c are until I set equal to 0. So I'm going to add 6 to both sides, and I'm going to get -30 equals 0. Now I'm going to say a is 5, b is 5, c is -30. And now I'm ready to plug into my formula. N is equal to -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. Plug the mismatch underneath the radical into your calculator. Simplify. Try this one on your own. Check. Do you get n equals 2 and n equals -3? So make sure you can get those on your own. And then try the rest of these notes. lastly, I want to leave you with this problem. Here is our big ping pong paddle. So me using the quadratic formula to find the roots of x squared minus 1 equals 0. So if you understand that, then you did a great job with this unit.